Assalamualaikum, my name is Naziha binti Muhammad Zain from 5BAV, here to share you an overview of my case study and how is it related to integrated information system. For my case study, I have decided to go with the aircraft accident involving a Boeing 737 Helios Airways Flight 522, also known to be, according to air crash investigation, ghost plane crash. So Helios Airways Flight 522 crashed into a mountain on 14th August 2005 in Greece while flying from Larnaca to Athens. A lack of oxygen incapacitated the crew, leading to the aircraft's eventually crash after running out of fuel. All 115 passengers and 6 crew on board the aircraft were killed. With 121 fatalities, this was the deadliest aviation accident in Greek history and the 4th deadliest involving a 737-300. An overview of the flight crash. The flight first arrived from London Heathrow, and the previous flight crew had reported a frozen door seal and abnormal noises coming from the right aft service door. They requested a full inspection of the door. The inspection was carried out by a ground engineer who then performed a pressurization leak check. So in order to carry out this pressurization leak check without requiring the aircraft's engine, the pressurization system was set to manual. However, the engineer failed to reset it to auto upon completion of the test. After the aircraft was returned into service, the flight crew overlooked the pressurization system state on 3 separate occasions, being that pre-flight procedure, the after-start check, and the after takeoff check. During these checks, no one in flight crew noticed the incorrect setting. The aircraft took off with the pressurization system still set to manual and the aft outflow valve partially open. As the aircraft climbed, the pressure inside the cabin gradually decreased. As it passed through an altitude of 12,040 feet, the cabin altitude warning horn sounded. The warning should have prompted the crew to stop climbing, but it was misidentified by the crew as a takeoff configuration warning, which signals that the aircraft is not ready for takeoff and can only sound on the ground. Then several warning lights on the overhead panels in the cockpit illuminated. One or both of the equipment cooling warning light came on to indicate low airflow through the cooling fans as a result of the decrease in air density, accompanied by the master caution light. The passenger oxygen light illuminated when at an altitude of approximately 18,000 feet. The oxygen mask in the passenger cabin automatically deployed. Shortly after the cabin altitude warning sounded, the captain radioed the Helios Operations Center and reported the takeoff configuration warning on and cooling equipment normal and alternate offline. He then spoke to the ground engineer and repeatedly stated that the cooling ventilation fan lights were off. The engineer, the one who had conducted the pressurization leak check, asked, "Can you confirm that the pressurization panel is set to auto?" The captain, possibly experiencing the onset of the initial effects of hypoxia, by definition is deficiency in the amount of oxygen reaching the tissues, disregarded the engineer's question, and instead asked in reply, "Where are my equipment cooling circuit breakers?" This was the last communication with the aircraft. The aircraft continued to climb. ATC then repeatedly attempted to contact the aircraft without success. The aircraft passed from Cyprus Flight Information Region into Athens Flight Information Region without making contact with Athens ATC. 19 attempts to contact with the aircraft met with no response. The aircraft entered the holding pattern for Athens airport at 30,000 feet still. It remained in the holding pattern under control of the autopilot for 70 minutes. 2 F-16 fighter aircraft were scrambled to establish visual contact with the Boeing 737. They intercepted the passenger jet and observed that the first officer was slumped motionless at the controls and the captain's seat was empty. They also reported that the oxygen masks were dangling in the passenger cabin. One of the flight attendants entered the cockpit and sat down in the captain's seat, having remained conscious by using a portable oxygen supply. Almost as soon as he entered the cockpit, the left engine flamed out due to fuel exhaustion. The plane left the holding pattern and started to descend. 10 minutes after the loss of power from the left engine, the right engine also flamed out, and the aircraft crashed into hills near Gramatico. There were no survivors. On 16 of December 2004, during an earlier flight from Warsaw, the same aircraft experienced a rapid loss of cabin pressure and the crew made an emergency descent. The cabin crew reported to the captain that there had been a bang from the aft service door and that there was a hand-sized hole in the door seal. The Air Accident and Incident Investigation Board of Cyprus could not conclusively determine the causes of the incident but indicated two possibilities: an electrical malfunction causing the opening of the outflow valve or the inadvertent opening of the aft service door. 10 weeks before the crash, the aircraft's environmental control system was repaired or inspected 7 times after getting complaints about the air conditioning problem of the aircraft. According to the accident report, the direct causes were: first, non-recognition that the cabin preservation mode selector was in the manual position during the performance of the pre-flight procedure, the before start checklist and the after takeoff checklist. Non-identification of the warnings and the reasons for the activation of the warnings. Incapacitation of the flight crew due to hypoxia, resulting in the continuation of the flight via the flight management computer and the autopilot. Depletion of the fuel and engine flame out and the impact of the aircraft with the ground. From the story I have just explained, I can conclude that the preservation system failure that occurred falls under soft failure. As stated under On-Board Maintenance System (OBMS), soft failure are defined as those in which it illuminates the relevant LEDs and are resettable. From the previous explanation, the pilot did ask where were the equipment circuit breakers, indicating that it was resettable, hence proving that the failure is indeed soft failure.